So we've made it to the month of June, which means we're almost halfway through 2019, which is kind of blowing my mind. But that means it's time to stop and rank all 8 May new releases that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sean Chandler, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Tell me, which May new releases did you see? Which ones did you love? Which ones did you hate? And which ones were kind of right there in the middle? If you're wondering, I wasn't able to see Booksmart. It didn't play at my local theater, so I missed that one, as well as Ma. There were a lot of new releases last week. That's the one I didn't happen to be able to see. Also, you might notice that things look a little bit different and that it's not in 720, it's actually in 1080 today, and that's because I was able to pick up a new camera. Because of you wonderful people watching my channel, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all of that fun stuff, I was able to upgrade and finally get a real camera and move away from using a webcam to shoot my videos. So as we kind of go through this is the first public video I've done with the new camera, so I'm still figuring out the settings. And so if you think it looks amazing, go ahead and let me know that. If you think there's some things a little bit off about the angle or something, I'm still figuring that out, so you don't need to tell me every weird thing that you notice about all of it. And one final thing before we get started, people very frequently ask me what equipment that I use, where do I get these posters behind me, and where do I get my Funkos? There's a link down below in the description that answers all of those questions, including about this new camera right here that I am using. With that said, let's get started talking about movies. Coming in last place is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Now, if you loved this movie and you're like furious that you're seeing this one is at the bottom and you want to go all Godzilla atomic breath on me because it's here. To clarify things, for me, May was a very middle of the road month. There wasn't anything that I hated. I have seen Godzilla 2 times. I saw it last Tuesday at a press screening, and then I went on Saturday to watch it a second time very gladly with my wife, actually, and my baby too. We took the baby to the theater, so it was kind of fun and exciting. I didn't hate this movie. I gave it a positive review. I told people to go see it, and if you just love monster action, it's got all of that. So, like I said, for me, there wasn't any movies in May that I thought were just awesome and absolutely nailed it, and there weren't any just total stinkers devoid of value. I had fun with this one. I thought the monster action worked. There's lots of monsters that you get to see. They duke it out throughout the whole movie. The cast here is great, as all the movies in this Monsterverse have a great cast. And there's some one-liners that I thought were pretty fun inside of the movie. It has urgency right out of the gate, and it doesn't let up on that tension until the credits roll at the end. And they do some nice world building as well. But the script here is kind of a train wreck. It's a mess. It's not a good script. There's plot holes. There's all sorts of logic issues of why is this teenage girl showing up in these places? And I had some people in the comments being like, oh, because she's a scientist. Like, well, yeah, but she's also still a teenager in what plays out in the movie. What she does in the movie proves that she should not have been in these environments with access to the things that she has access to. The characters are one-dimensional. The mom, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know where they thought we were going to land in the third act of this movie with this character, but it's not where they took us. Like, they took us to the totally wrong place in light of the story that they told. So this movie, for me, it's not boring. It's a movie that's I find watchable, but not particularly good. I'll declare it. This is a Taco Bell movie for me. This has earned the Taco Bell title. It's got problems, but I still had a lot of fun with it, but it still comes in last. Coming in at number 7 is Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. This is another movie. I'd give it the same score, a B- that I gave to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, but for totally different reasons, as they're very different movies. The best thing about this movie is Zac Efron's Ted Bundy, that is just as creepy, wicked, vile as the title would imply, but charismatic. And that's the part that makes the movie really weird, because there's all these sequences that are, the scene is built to make you root for Ted Bundy, but at the end of the day, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, he's an actual serial killer. He really killed these people, but I was almost rooting for him. Like, he played that moment so well. And that's what the movie does so well, and what Zac Efron does so well. Captures whatever that strange charisma was about Ted Bundy, that people actually liked him. People were actually rooting for him, even though he was a horrible human being. And like some people didn't like the movie because of that. They just felt too creeped out that they were rooting for a serial killer. But that's what was powerful about this film for me, is that they captured the unsettling nature of him. Where the movie wasn't as strong, and like I still recommend it, check it out, but it's not a masterpiece. It's not like the definitive Ted Bundy movie or something like that, because the movie is told essentially from the perspective of the women in his lives, whether you're talking about kind of his live-in wife kind of person that he had, or the mistress that kind of came later on. You see him from their perspectives. And so it always feels like you're missing out on the real meat of what happens. It doesn't dig in deep of him like going out on the hunt and killing someone, which on the one hand, you don't really want to see that. And in another perspective, like for a Ted Bundy movie, it's kind of tame, certainly tame when it comes to the violence that's shown on screen. And so I felt I wanted to see more. I wanted to get deeper into who he was and not just other people's perspectives on him. So I got to the end of it a little disappointed, wanting more, even though Efron is great and they definitely captured the creepy vibe of the real person that was Ted Bundy, or monster that was Ted Bundy. At number 6 is Brightburn, another movie that I would give kind of that B- to, where I'd say it's good, it's just not as good as I was hoping it would be. The basic concept up here of what if Superman was evil and during those teenage years flipped and turned to a supervillain instead of a superhero. I think that's a great concept for a horror movie. And in that regard, this movie works really well. It builds the tension. You feel the dread and the terror of what if you were the parents of an evil Superman at that age? Like, oh, wow, that's not good. That is bad. But then also, the movie, I didn't feel like it didn't do anything creative with the idea. It was a very straightforward version of that. Plays out, so it's good enough because it does that. But what it doesn't do is do anything all that unexpected, really. It didn't shock me, really, besides maybe some of the graphic images. It just played out exactly how I thought it was going to, based off of the trailer. No real twists or turns. And maybe some of that falls on the trailer for showing too much and being kind of like walking you through the plot of the movie. But I just left kind of being like, I wish they would have done more with that. I wish they could have taken it further. And in fact, a lot of times in the movie, especially in the middle, it felt a little bit dull. Like I was waiting for it to kind of kick in a little bit more. The performances were strong, the idea great, building tension, just didn't capture me as much as I wanted it to. So as much as it was a good enough version of it, it wasn't the great version of this concept. Bringing us into the top 5 is Aladdin. I was as skeptical as anyone going into this movie. I didn't think that Guy Ritchie was a particularly good fit for a Disney live-action musical remake. I was skeptical about the basic idea of them redoing Aladdin in general. It just feels too soon. It certainly feels like a cash grab. They're doing it because they know they're going to print money if they do it. And like everyone else, I was like, who do you get to replace Robin Williams? That is a dangerous game. And then they announced Will Smith, and I thought, yeah, that's the right guy. That's the person that you cast to replace Robin Williams. He's got the energy, the charisma, the charm. He can do the music in a totally different way, bring something new. And so I thought that was inspired. And then watching the movie, it just kind of works. It plays all the nostalgia buttons. It only tweaks little things here and there. It basically is the whole thing. So it's a movie that's very watchable. But the magic really is Will Smith. Will Smith is the one that makes this movie one that I would recommend to people and say, you got to check this one out because you got to see Will Smith as the genie. He's as good as you would think he would be. He's as fun. He's as different. And he's the person that brings it all together. The movie can feel a little bit like, why are we doing this? And then Will Smith shows up and the whole game changes a little bit at that point in time. So for me, this is another one, much like Beauty and the Beast, where it's kind of like, okay, why are we doing this? It's basically the same thing, not quite as good with a few tweaks here and there. I would edge this one out above Beauty and the Beast, though, because of Will Smith and just how fun he is to see on screen and yet get the opportunity to see this different version of the genie. That's what makes this one work for me. At number 4 is Detective Pikachu. Now, I said this in my review, but I have no long-term history with Pokemon at all. I couldn't even told you what the concept was a year ago, other than you're supposed to catch them, and there are these creatures out there that you throw balls at. That's probably all I could have told you about Pokemon. But over the last 6 months, both of my kids have become obsessed with it, so I've grown a little bit more. As soon as this trailer dropped, my kids saw it, and this became like a must-watch for us. And then the trailers I thought were pretty charming, cute, and enjoyable, almost entirely because of Ryan Reynolds being charming, fun, and enjoyable to watch on screen. And that's essentially what the movie was. It's a cool world. It's a fun world with all these creatures. And even as the person that doesn't know the world, I was having fun getting to know everything and going into this place. It was a place I liked being. The standout, of course, is Ryan Reynolds, who's just as funny at PG as he is when he's R-rated. Gets the one-liners. His timing's always great. He absolutely worked inside of it. And there's some fun action and spectacle inside of it. The specific story, this detective aspect of it, very run-of-the-mill, pretty predictable, a little bit far-fetched at times. You're not super engaged with the specific plot line, but you actually absolutely love what Ryan Reynolds is doing. You're having fun the whole time, and there's always things to look at that are enjoyable. I mean, a couple of the performances were weird. Like the lead girl in it felt like she was in a totally different movie, especially when she first appeared on screen in the film. So overall, it's a movie that's way better than I was expecting it to be when they first announced it. Not quite a great film, but I would say it's a pretty good little Pokemon film. In third place is Always Be My Maybe. If you don't know what this one is, it's a Netflix original rom-com that dropped just a couple of days ago, and you should definitely check this one out. This is one of the better Netflix original films that I've seen this year. And at the center of it, it's basically about these two kind of childhood best friends that kind of almost got together, and then the timing was wrong, and they went totally different directions, and then as grown-ups, they kind of get back together at very different places in their life, and so they kind of drive each other crazy, but they also still have that spark of friendship, and you see that kind of play out, and there's very natural humor to it. It's a different type of rom-com. This isn't like, a Matthew McConaughey film from 15 years ago. Much more organic. The conflict between the two people makes more sense. It's more relatable. It's kind of exploring stages of life as you kind of grow up and the way relationships change with time. It just has a really nice, sharp sense of humor, characters that you enjoy while they also kind of drive you crazy, and you want them to change and grow throughout the story, which is kind of what you want in movies like this. And in case you haven't seen the trailer for it and haven't had the A-list star cameo spoiled for you, I won't tell you what it is, but there's this incredible 10, 15-minute sequence in the middle of the movie. It's in the trailer, so if you're interested in seeing it, haven't watched the trailer yet, don't watch the trailer for it, because it'll blow your mind if you don't know that this is in the movie, that this person's going to show up in the way that it kind of plays out. It's hilarious, this little section in the middle of the movie. But where it's not quite, I was hoping it would be my favorite of the month, or kind of like top tier for me. It got held back just a little bit because the movie feels so California to me. At times it feels like I'm being left out of certain inside jokes because it's so San Francisco-centric, Bay Area-centric, and as someone that's been in Texas a very long time and hasn't been back to the Bay Area since I was a little baby. I was born in San Jose. I felt a little bit left out of some of the nature to it because it felt so regional in the way it kind of handled a bunch of stuff and the way people perceived the world around them. And so it kind of kept it a little bit arm's length away from me. But the romantic stuff works, the humor works, and there's a bunch of really great stuff about it. You should definitely check this one out. Our runner-up is Rocketman. I mentioned this in my review. I'm not by my nature an Elton John fan. Like, I'm not a hater or anything like that. But of all the kind of classic 70s rockers, he's not the one that I've typically enjoyed his music. I don't know a lot about his history, backstory, or anything like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. There's a bunch of obvious comparisons to Bohemian Rhapsody. The guy that directed Rocketman was kind of the replacement director on Bohemian Rhapsody, and he was the person they originally hired to direct Bohemian Rhapsody. There's a bunch of similar plot points inside of the movies because of the life stories, have some parallels for Freddie Mercury and Elton John. And so for me, this is a movie that's interesting to kind of like watch all of this play out, because this was the better version of a biopic because it's played more, it's an actual musical. It's told very artistically and as kind of flamboyant and fantastical and vibrant as Elton John's life was. That's the way they tell his story. And I really appreciated that about the film and just kind of the way they montage through things, the way they visualize kind of the despair, his kind of troubled childhood, the rise to fame, all some really cool stuff and the way they creatively kind of communicated it. It did slow down a little bit for me in the middle because it goes so deep into the drugs, the depression, the depravity. And so it feels like you kind of stay in there for quite a while. And because his life story doesn't have the Live Aid performance that Queen had, talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, his life doesn't have that. So the movie doesn't like crescendo to this big, gigantic performance or something like that. So it can feel a little bit like you're going through the journey. You get to the point like, oh, he's kind of worked through some things. I guess we're coming to a close. And then it comes to a close. It felt like I would have liked it if they'd found a way to have that a little bit more of the crescendo. But still, I mean, this is a great little biopic. I really enjoyed the way they did this. And they took someone that inherently I wouldn't naturally be interested in, and they made it very interesting for me. But coming in at first place is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. This has kind of become the premier action franchise of the decade. It started out as this little movie that didn't have a trailer until 1 month before the movie came out, and then it was like, what? Keanu Reeves is killing people over a dog, and it's grown into this massive franchise that people love and has amazing world building, fantastic action choreography, and has kind of reignited Keanu Reeves' action movie career, at least as an A-lister. And this movie kind of continues all of that. The action is bigger than ever. They're doing stunt work that, like, I don't know how they're doing it. There's things that they did. I've never seen a movie use these techniques before. And everything's vibrant, choreographed to perfection. They're bringing new people in like Halle Berry. She's getting in on the action just right alongside Keanu Reeves. Very cool stuff. They doubled down on the mythology and the high table and all that stuff. Maybe a little bit too far. It's one of those ones that they built this world that you're interested in, you want to learn more about, and so they keep going deeper and deeper. And this one, where it's like got to the point where it was like, okay, maybe we've gone too far. Maybe we crossed the line at this point. Hopefully we dial this back when we continue on with everything. There's a few plot points that I thought were a little bit frustrating. I felt like they built certain people up to be villains that you wanted to be taken down at the end of the film. And instead they use that more as a setup for future films. That's frustrating. If you set them up in this movie as the person I want to see defeated, I want to see them defeated in this film, not tease that for our later film, especially with the way this kind of universe works. I was talking with some other people about this. I feel like what they're teasing for the next movie should have been the third act of this film. Very good movie that I wish they could have done it a little bit different. I understand why they didn't. I understand where they're going with it, but that would have been perfection had they done that. Still, it comes in at number 1. Remember to let me know which May movies you saw down below in the comment section. Let's have a nice, lively discussion. Maybe let me know which movies I need to check out as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.